I'm Anna Zanes, editor-in-chief of Alternative Press. We're here in Los Angeles with AFI shooting their first AP cover in 16 years. I sit down with Davey Havok to talk about their 12th studio album, Silver Bleeds the Black Sun.
I am Freddie Madison. I'm Betty Jones. Nikki Grace and Susan Blue. In glitter hell. In glitter hell.
Okay,
Here we are.
cool. So I kind of want to dive straight into the new album.
Great. First time.
And I read that you said, this is something we've said about our records for years. This is starkly different from records we've done in the past.
Yeah.
I want to hear a little bit more about that.
Okay. Do you have any specific questions about that?
As a band who kind of album to album does something different and surprising, like how do you continue to be surprising if your thing is to be surprising?
So about our thing being to be surprising, which it is, that comes from our need to be surprising to ourselves. Speaking personally, I definitely in the writing process need to feel that we're doing something. I've spoken about this in interviews for a long time, but in order to be, and I believe I speak for all of us in this case, in order to be inspired by what we're creating and to continue to connect with it in the writing process, it's long been those moments that we haven't touched on before that really excite us, that really push us forward. And to your point, after is this our 12th record? So this being a 12th full length that we were embarking on creating, and in the light of so many other releases as well, it honestly, again, speaking for myself, was somewhat of a daunting task. And personally, I love Bodies. I was so happy with what Bodies became. And afterward, for the first time in the history of writing in the context of AFI, I became a little bit daunted personally at the prospect of writing new music, because we've done so much musically in the context of AFI. The question was, okay, how are we going to progress from here? What are we going to do next that we haven't done? What could that possibly be, while working within the confines of something that we would enjoy doing? Of course, there are countless genres of music we haven't touched on, but the question was, which of those would be exciting or interesting? And what really defined this process and really defined this album in a way that was definitive in the process, was a conversation. We rarely had, over the years, if ever, had very explicit conversations about a direction. Traditionally, and definitely in modern times, the writing process was sitting down and writing, and whatever came out of us that was exciting, we would gravitate toward, and that would direct us toward an album. And I knew that could result in exciting songs, but personally, I felt that something that might behoove us as far as being inspired and creating something that is fresh for us, limitation might actually help us, which was something, or at least help me, which was something that we really hadn't had for a long time. And I was thinking about this in a technology regard, as well as an emotional aspect that I hadn't thought of technology, because I don't. But I also realized in thinking of this album that in the beginning we were confined by our lack of resources, and then resources opened up to us and opened up the possibilities. And then you get things like Art of Drowning and Sing the Sorrow and December Underground, and records that we never could have made before, because we just did not have the resources to do that. We didn't have the time, we didn't have the technology, we didn't have the instrumentation, we did not have any of that. And that opened things up. And as money went away, simultaneously it became very possible for us to write as much as we want with vast amount of technology that we, coming from our generation, didn't have at the beginning. And so things opened up in a way without the finances in an even larger way. I digress, sort of. Back to your question. I guess I can limit it to this. We had meetings and we talked about creating a record with a singular mood, which is something that we've never articulated before, trying an attempt to create a record with a singular mood. If you look at the AFI records from the past, you can find records with singular mood, but that mood is angst, aggression, which is adjacent to angst. And they were without a conversation, but as we grew and we got out of simply aggressive music, we left that. And upon leaving that, our records had all sorts of different moods within them. And I thought if we had a conversation about creating a record, an attempt to create a record with one mood, it could result in something like Silver Bleeds the Black Sun, which it did. So the writing process, I guess this is very loquacious, the writing process was very different in that we were very clear about where we wanted to stay. And it did grow and it did weave from the initial conversation into what we have now. And it is not truly a singular mood, the entire record, but it's close to it. It's closer to it, I feel, than any of our more recent records. Is that the answer?
That was an amazing answer.
It was long.
No, but it was, there's a lot to think about.
There's a lot to think about.
Well, it's interesting because you say singular mood, and then I'm thinking about your other records, and immediately I'm like, no, they all have singular moods.
Well, do they?
But then you say anger.
I would love to hear, okay.
And angst, and I'm thinking about this like therapy thing where it's like the tip of the iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
There's anger, and then underneath the water, there's all of the other things.
Correct.
So
as a puerile child, we were at the tip of the iceberg.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of growth.
Deeper and deeper and deeper. We're old. There's been a lot of growth for a long time.
But like internal growth and...
Sure, you can't help it. Well, one would hope.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you can help it.
Yeah.
One can help it.
But when you say mood too, like there's the more literal definition of like emotional state. Mm. But in terms of having a conversation about how an album and its like sonic landscape is going to be, how would you define mood?
So it's wonderful that you'd say that, because when I was presenting this concept and the band was talking about it, which honestly has been imparted upon me by my really good friend RJ, who comes from the hardcore scene, who used to tour with AFI and has the first vegan coffee shop in the nation up in Oakland. He kept saying, I want you to make your mood record. I want you to make your mood record. And I'm like, I don't know if we're ever going to be doing it, if we can do it, if we as a band can do that, because we always go off on tangents. He's been saying that to me for years, and I thought it was a great idea. When I presented it, I meant to say moody, a record that is exclusively moody, and I said mood. And I gave references, different bands, records, songs, and we started there, and it went somewhere else pretty quickly, but somewhere adjacent. You've heard the record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great.
So to be clear, the first conversations in the meeting were pornography, Heaven Up Here, Swamp Thing. I think Red Lorry was addressed. Yes, John McCleoch, and yes, Creatures, and Lorry is, I hear Lorry, but that dreamy post-punk, that dreaminess isn't really there. It's there a little bit, maybe in Void Word. I'm probably more familiar than the record with the record you are, but maybe not. We'll see. And as we began, it almost immediately turned from there to something more tense, something slightly more aggressive, ironically, being that aggression is what we said. Well, maybe not ironically. There you go. We just discovered something.
Well, it's interesting.
We went back to the one mood, but it's not aggressive.
It's definitely not.
It's not an aggressive record.
There's so many facets to it.
There's
I
aggressive
feel like.
themes.
But it is interesting though, because then there's also the question of like, if you're a band or an artist and every piece of work is really different, then like what's the through line? And coming back to aggression, but you're coming back to it in a different place in your life. You're coming back to it with a different backdrop.
Absolutely.
Another question I have about the mood thing though too is like getting 4 people on the same page of a singular mood.
Yeah.
Musicians at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seems intense.
It does and it wasn't, which was great, which made the writing process so prolific as it has been in the past. And, we always write far more songs than one ever hears on the record. And that was the case this time. But because there was communication about it, there was an explicit agreement on which way to go, which in the case of us, we all come from the same place. If we can use the term punk in any of its fundamental definitions, it's where we all come from. And thereby we have a lot of the same influences and we're all fans of music. So when having that conversation, the references weren't difficult to agree upon. None of it was difficult to agree upon. It was just a suggestion that we thought we'd try. And I thought, and immediately, it was immediately clear that it was artistically successful when we started writing, because songs were just pouring out, and Jade would come with just gorgeous musical ideas, just perfect as he always does. And it was just so fun. It was very, very fun, which, that's wild. To go from a place of, I don't know what this is going to be. How are we going to do something exciting for us? And it was immediately exciting. So exciting. Behind the Clock, which may be my favorite AFI song. I'm pretty certain it's my favorite AFI song. It's one of the songs that we wrote maybe day 2, day 4, over a 10-month writing period. Oh. Yeah. And I remember when we wrote that, immediately thinking, okay, this is it, here we go. And then from there, I honestly thought Behind the Clock came so early on, I thought it would all be Behind the Clock, and it's not. So that's an example of it not being one mood, but adjacent moods.
As punks who came from a hardcore place initially, I'm curious, just also as a fan of post-punk and dark wave, what that kind of music does for you.
Oh boy. I mean, so that is punk to us. So fundamentally, it has the same messages, and it has some of the same messages. Hardcore and post-punk deal with alienation in different ways. And me personally, long finding the dark and beautiful compelling, post-punk has thereby always been compelling, because it is in fact dark and beautiful. If it is truly, if we're going to use genres, yes. So the poetry and the connection and the beauty that's involved in that, personally, has long spoken to me since I was very, very young. In fact, I was a Cure fan before I found hardcore. I'm not that old, so I wasn't there for any of that. I wasn't there for the second wave, and barely even. I wasn't even really there for the third wave. I came in. I started going to punk shows in the early '90s, but there's an emotional connection and in that attraction to Crooked Beauty.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that it's like a space, right? If we're avoiding genre, talking about genre, whatever.
We must,
Yeah.
I suppose.
I don't believe in it, but I'm going to use it for this conversation.
Communication,
Yeah.
you know.
It's, for me, it's always been like a melancholic narrative, which is something I'm always drawn to, that you can dance to. And that's also like cathartic. And I mean, I've always found that in your music as well.
Oh my God, well, that's such a compliment. Thank you.
It's really special. And I think that also has so much to do with mood.
Absolutely. Well, there's all sorts of moods.
There definitely are.
I mean, you know, your mood affects everything, and our music, the music that we love the most releases endorphins in our body, and for certain reasons, certain people, different music will or won't cause that hit. It has to do with our childhood, most certainly. Doesn't it all?
Also to like break down the musical elements on the new album and talk about the process with that too.
I'll try to keep up. Just a singer.
Well, also, okay, first of all, then talk about your vocals. Your vocals on this are really special.
Thank you. When we were writing and working to do something unique within the general frame that we had created for ourselves, which, you know, broke and cracked, but then, you know, reformed and stayed in a similar world, I knew that there was a vocal that was appropriate to that and a vocal that wasn't appropriate to that. So a lot of the things that I was doing was a conscious effort. A lot of it was a response to the sound, but the sound was something that we had already curated, if only intellectually, that would push toward the vocal that you're going to hear. So on this record, that baritone that you hear is something that traditionally in the frame of AFI is not something you hear very frequently. I definitely hit the lowest notes I've ever hit in AFI on this record, if not the lowest notes I've ever hit on recording, most certainly. That was part of the directive, at least internally for me. And also I thought about what have I not done? I have not done that. And I realized that in looking at, analyzing my writing to an extent of the past, which is something I would never have done otherwise. Like, what do I do? What is it that I do? What is it that I don't do? Repetition. Actually, Ramones X, we were talking about Ramones X earlier, and doing the cover band and listening to Ramones songs in different ways than I had in the past, like actively listening to them to rehearse them. I was even more impressed with the Ramones, and repetition Ramones are repetition, and repetition was very impressive to me that the Ramones were able to create such music with such repetition that I would argue is profound. And repetition is something that I lyrically don't traditionally do and melodically don't traditionally do. So there was a conscious effort from me to try to repeat. There was a conversation about space. There was an attempt to create more space, which is something that, again, you're going to hear me as much as I can. I'm trying to fill every bit of space historically with some sort of fucking vocal. Mm-hmm. And space is very important. And I wanted to try to pull out some. That was something that was actually consciously attempted and I believe achieved, as well as elements of spoken word, Sprechensong, if not spoken word, both of those. So again, there was a consciousness to it that really distinguished the writing process from the past, and a pointedness to it and a directive. And I think also distinguishes gets that sound. That's where the very distinctive sound of this record came from. So yeah, vocally it's quite different, and it's very much in my vocal strength, which is really exciting for me to be when a song sits where I am able to sing it best. It also makes me deliver it better.
Yeah. I mean, listening to it the first time, it wasn't what I was expecting, obviously, because I hadn't, which was...
What did you expect, if I may? I don't mean to corner you.
No. I also, like, Nick Darrell, who's during your publicity, was like, he said something about post-punk.
Uh-huh.
But I also, I loved Bodies, too.
Thank you.
I loved it.
Thank you. That means a lot.
And I've learned at this point, listening to my whole life, I don't no, I don't go in with expectations.
Facts.
First of all. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so that's what I would presume for someone who has listened to us their whole life. And I'm curious about that because I would presume that, and I always do, and this has been proven on many occasions, that AFI fans who are fans of the music and not fans for just one period of time don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Every time.
I also, kind of, like, I read your Substack. Like, I kind of know.
You read my Substack?
I love your Substack. First of all, you're such a good writer. But.
Go on. No, thank you. Thank you very much. I don't, that means a lot. Thank you.
But
I'm okay.
It's very theatrical, but not even in like I don't know how to articulate it, but it's kind of what you were saying about leaving space. The vocals feel theatrical in that, like, they're like you're delivering lines. It's really interesting and it feels very poetic. With
the space, it frames the sentiment more, the written sentiment more, the language, the lyric.
Everything is very intentional, and that's something that I see as a through line with AFI.
Thank you.
The intentionality.
This even more so than before.
Yeah, I mean,
even more so than before as a whole. Certainly everything we do is intentional. Thank you. I wouldn't want to say that we were, just fast and loose with writing the records before. Every song that we work on is we're very focused on it. But the threads were woven more delicately this time.
And lyrically, I'm also curious what went into that. There's a lot of interesting references. You have some Lynchian references.
True.
There's
a lot.
Jean Duffel.
There's Jean Duffel. There's a lot. For Behind the Clock, the Lynch reference is very clear. Actually, I've written something you'll read about, but I'll reference that. I had a very poignant moment personally in my life where I recognized parallel in my life trajectory with multiple Lynch characters, which I couldn't have recognized in my lifespan, as I've been a Lynch fan since I was very, very young. And it really made me contemplate the question of, as one of the poetic greats has said, who made who? AC/DC. My first record, by the way, not who made who. My first record was Back in Black, but it's a classic question. Is the art a mirror? Does the art connect to me because I'm fundamentally these human beings? Not terribly flattering in the case of these Lynch characters. How did this happen? Yeah. So getting inspiration from film, yes, absolutely. Film, literature, but also the current upside down state of modern existence, as a human in this really fucked up dystopia that I never could have foreseen. So there's very universal elements of that in a lot of the songs, and trying to cope with this just nightmare world that we live in. And in addition, very personal artistic inspirations and references in the context of that, where you're seeing inspiration from, as you pointed out, Baudelaire to David Lynch to Sorich, which of course. And now that I'm saying this out loud, it's the same shit. I'm realizing like, oh my gosh, these are the same references that I've had, since I discovered those artists decades ago. Like I actually had this epiphany. There's some mysticism references and imagery. One of the songs, Void Word, I believe, that I realized I was referencing similar beings to songs referenced to beings that were referenced in Art of Drowning songs. How boring. Oh, new, huh? But yes, literature, art, but again, in the context of now, in which now, what? what the fuck happened? And I'm not speaking simply politically, but social politics. And to me, I'm really pummeled by the deconstruction of art culture and the deconstruction of sanctuaries and the deconstruction of communities by way of dilution, which is of course, let's say the internet word, which is the internet and which is social media. And, we've seen this coming for a long time, but we didn't know what form it would take. And it's sad to see sanctuaries fall apart.
Are you a spiritual person?
No. It depends on how you define it. The cross is upside down. It depends on how you define spirituality. What do you mean by that?
Well, I guess.
Do I have a spirit in me that will turn into a ghost when you smack me around for tearing up during the interview?
It wasn't the question.
What is the question?
I guess it's how you define it. If you say, yes, I am, then in what definition?
Okay, well, then I say, no, I'm not.
Okay.
Then I say, no, I'm not. I think that's a slippery slope to start talking about spirituality because I think it's very difficult for the average person anyone to define spirituality, but the immediate thought goes to some sort of concept of a higher power, organized religion, which I do not believe in a higher power that is some sort of mystic creature. I believe art is the higher power, and that is mysticism, which is fundamentally mundane. I feel that the only thing that creates what people refer to as spirituality for me is art. That when we transcend the terrain, we're looking at human-made objects. So no, I'm not spiritual.
I don't disagree with you about the art.
Oh, well, thanks.
Yeah. How
could you?
I mean,
you're doing this job.
What would you say your first transcendent experience with art was?
Oh, wow. The Muppets? Who knows? So many, but we have to go back there. I can picture my, I reacted to music. I think we as humans really react to music immediately at a young age. I've seen this with my friends' children. They play them songs and they dance, so we have some sort of fundamental connection with the beat and with music and with sound, and of course part of our senses. But I used to bounce on my bed to my mother's, is this Upside Down, Boy to Me? Is that, forgive me. Who is that? Is that Ronstadt? Is that Linda Ronstadt? So we're talking about that, the disco era and AC/DC. I was 5 when I got the AC/DC record, but also I'm reacting to, the Muppets, which is art. Oh, the Muppets and Broadway and these creatures that I relate to, these impossible creatures, whether they're, talking animals or something completely other, and they're singing and they're dancing and, meanwhile, my mom has her records there, and poor woman had a copy of the Rocky Horror Picture Show on vinyl. And there you go.
There you go.
And I'm very, very young, so I think that all really affected me. I know that all really affected me, so I certainly can't pinpoint one. I could pinpoint many, but I'd have to keep thinking for a moment of epiphany that would, I think, take being conscious, be more adult than just what I imbued as a very, very, very young person. All of that. I mentioned to you, I went to saw Looney Tunes. I love Looney Tunes. And I had this, I recognized this prior to this, so I was watching for it, but I went to the symphony. They scored Looney Tunes. It was gorgeous. It was really, really fun and beautiful. And they would show Looney Tunes cartoons while the orchestra scored the Merry Melodies. So I counted, and it's Bugs, it's his birthday, and there had 4 Bugs Bunny cartoons in a row. And in 4 Bugs Bunny cartoons in a row, Bugs Bunny wore women's clothing and presented as a woman. That informed me as a young child, as it does, and it's awesome. That's great that they were doing that, because they knew that children were watching that, and that was cool. So all of that growing up, and then, if we're speaking within the music, the bands that that really inspired me, I remember seeing Devo and their hats, and their energy domes, which I certainly did not know they were called energy domes when I was that young. But there were Honda commercials. Do you know about this? There were Honda scooter commercials. So those bands were like wildly popular. If they weren't wildly popular in America, someone my age would not have found them. Like, you know, it was so mainstream. So much so that Honda was hiring Grace Jones, Devo, and Adamant to do Honda scooter commercials. Look them up. That informed me. You see these people and they're, you know, they're beautiful and they're other, and you're a kid and you think that is Sig Sputnik. I remember looking at the cassette at Tower Records in Sacramento where I lived and thinking, wow. And again, little did I understand that it was performance art and commentary and Warhol with a rock and roll guitar and space age technology. All of that. I have so many big moments of being inspired by something. And, you know, Lynch is that. I started watching Lynch when I was a teenager in those formative years. I read a study recently where they did on a large group of people, and the study showed that the songs that people listen to between the age of 10 and 15 hold the most emotional value. Which anyone who's listening to this thinks and goes, yep. So all of those years were so important.
Giving me a lot to think about.
Which is, you know, I still listen to all that stuff that I grew up, those years, 10 to 15, almost all of it. I'm sure I'm exaggerating. I'm sure we could find things that I don't listen to, but everything that has had the biggest impact on me, almost everything came from that era. And if it didn't come from that era, I was led to it by those bands. I was not listening to Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds when I was 15 years old or 10. But, you know, by the time I was a teenager, I knew Release the Bats. And then, that's this, you know, so it all comes from that.
It's all the portals that get you there.
Of course.
I mean, it's also all of those things, you know, Muppets, and it's all very narrative and it's all very transportative. And like you said, other. And I think that I totally relate. I think that's what it is.
I wasn't allowed to dress myself.
I wasn't either.
Yeah, so you know what that's like.
I actually wanted to talk about something on your Substack.
Oh.
The post about nerve agents.
Okay.
You said, I can hear the Bay Area circa the century's end, talk about punks who enjoyed explosive catharsis, but still believed in the forward-thinking ethos of our progenitors.
Yeah.
Do you think you can hear still the East Bay in AFI?
Yeah.
And this new album?
Absolutely. If you're listening and you know what that question means, more so than in the past years, because as we were talking about earlier, to me, when I think about this record, is this a punk record? This is a punk record. It takes an understanding of what I mean to, like, in modern times, who knows what that word even means now. But to me, this is a punker, this is a more punk sounding record than a lot of the records in the past, in the most recent past. And thereby, because to me, when I think of Gilman Street, when I think of coming from there and, you know, playing there every weekend, and then later in the 2000s with what Eric Zane was doing in the early 2000s, which AFI wasn't playing there at that point. Those people who founded that collective were, if we're going to agree upon the word, decidedly punks. And the ethic that was more than embraced, that was demanded of participating in that community, or you were pariah, if not, and rightfully so, comes from the original directive of, you know, what came from the Ramones and what came from the Sex Pistols and what came from the Saints and so on and so forth. So again, fundamentally, that community is that, and I think that is very, very much a part of what's going on. Not that it ever wasn't, but sonically, you might hear something that sounds more like that, or maybe not. Maybe. Am I still talking?
It's interesting though, because it does feel like this is such a departure, like everything is, but there's also a lot of full circle moments. And like, I guess, again,
I don't disagree with
it's
you.
Growth.
I have to step away from it to understand that. But yeah, I think so. Again, like it's hard to get, as we were talking about lyrics, I had the epiphany, like, okay, I'm doing this is all new, and it's like, you literally wrote about something you've already written about to an extent. You're referencing something very literally, and you forgot.
Well, that's psychology, isn't it? That's
Exactly. And that's what, I mean, this all is a psychological experiment process.
Okay, I have another. There was a comment on Reddit.
Uh-oh.
No. From a fan who said that AFI sacrifices themselves for us to feel something.
Oh. That's kind. I think that's very, very kind. That's a very, very, very kind way of framing it. I think you'd have to talk to each of us to see a reaction. Personally, I'm so happy that anybody feels anything from what we create, because I have to do this. I have to do it in some form. And that is my hope. That is my hope, that there is, and it has always been, that there is some connection to feel something. And if someone's getting that from what I do, they're giving me the gift, sacrifice or not. One might point to my life and say, look at all that you've sacrificed. Well, I don't want it. If it's not a sacrifice, if you don't want it, certain things that are, general precepts of normal Western behavior might be perceived as a sacrifice. And I'm just so, I'm grateful for that take. It's very kind, and thank you for feeling something, and thank you for listening to it and taking the time to connect to it, because that's not a lot. Not everyone listens to music that way. A lot of people are passive listeners. In fact, probably the majority of music consumption is done by passive listeners, probably, if we're going to work in numbers. Yeah. People who don't even listen to words. And if they are singing the words, perhaps don't even bother to question what it is the intention is, or what those words are saying, or might they mean more than that? And probably not, depending on what we're listening to, but maybe. So, not much. My body, I've beaten myself up pretty badly. But again, I'm so lucky to be able to do that. And I'd be doing it anyway, and that someone cares about it is so nice, And it's devastating to me when there's not. It's all ego. It's in the end, everything is ego. It's all what we want and not want to do. If we want to benefit someone, that's something I want to do. I don't need, that. So it's kind of you to everyone to listen to this and care about it. Anyone that does. So I don't think of it as a sacrifice.
Yeah, it's definitely a connection. I feel like on both ends is
hopefully.
Yeah. Well, at least for me and this person on Reddit.
Great. Thank you. Both of you. And that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. No matter who is listening to us, we always came from a place of really expecting no one to listen to us ever.
And do you still feel that way?
Expecting no one to listen to it?
Or like expecting, because especially if you're doing different things,
Yeah, I don't have high expectations ever. It's not that I'm a pessimist. It's that I don't, especially now, back to the overwrought moment of me almost breaking into tears, even more so than ever, can't have any expectations. Nothing is what it seems. Music industry aside.
Yeah, there's also, I just feel like such an onslaught of shit. Just
correct.
All angles, all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So it's...
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Connection is few and far between.
Yeah. So if people are getting that, that's wonderful. no sacrifice.
You have a lot of side projects.
Who knows how many?
How do each of those serve you, you know? And I'm curious if in different ways.
Different ways. Okay, lay them down. See, tell me which ones and I'll respond because I might leave one out.
The Ramones.
So I love the Ramones. It's so Ramones. I love the Ramones and those songs are so fun. And Ramones happened, forgive me if you know, Ramones X happened when, and Jade and I, here's another one. So Jade and I made a record under the name Extremist. That was a side project that served us because Jade and I, while we were writing, I believe, yes, Burials, started writing these really aggressive hardcore songs. Maybe there was a conversation. There's another record with a conversation. There was a conversation about he and I, having long been part of the straight edge community, having never been in a straight edge band, with the exception of AFI at the very beginning, claimed straight edge was not the case. So we decided to make a very, very aggressive straight edge record, with the point being the straight edge philosophy. We did that. When we put out the record and we're going to play 2 shows, we had to put together a band to do that, a straight edge band. So that included Josh James and Val, who are in multiple hardcore bands. And so one day, Josh and I were on a walk to Real Food Daily, which doesn't exist anymore. And we were talking about how, back to what I was saying about the Ramones, just how unbelievable the Ramones are when you really, really deconstruct the Ramones and think about the Ramones and the time and the place and the songs and the lyrics, which are fucking insane, but really smart and dismissed often. Back to the passive listening, you know, now I want to sniff some glue. Okay, haha. But what are we talking about? Anyways, and just really, very, just naturally, he said, we should start a Ramones cover band. I said, absolutely, I get to sing Ramones songs. And then I said, oh my God, let's get 2 other straight edge people and we'll call it, and it will be a Ramones straight edge band, so which sick. Is absurd, right? It's
so
absurdist.
Cool.
And we don't change the lyrics, we don't fuck with them, we're not sticky about it. It's just the title. And I said, are we X Ramones X, the obvious? And then I think he said, or are we Ramones X? And that's the way to go. And so that's where Ramones came from. So that simply allows me to sing Ramones songs, which I really love doing. Honestly, we could list a name of cover bands that I would love to do because I'm such a fan of the music. And so are those guys. So there's no pressure. We're now a Christmas band. So that's the inspiration for that, to sing Ramones songs. That was the inspiration of Extremist. Black Audio was very much, Jade and I were long fans of electronica and industrial. And at the time that Black Audio formed, which my friend then, Sean, who was an experimental electronic musician who passed away, he was going to teach me how to do that. See why it wasn't a good idea? And I mentioned it to Jade and he said, why don't I learn to do it and we do it together? And I'm like, well, that'll be perfect because everything Jade touches is perfect. He just immediately, and Black Audio was that, where he decided to learn to do that and immediately is the best at it. And so we started Black Audio. This was the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. And so we slowly started doing that around the time that I think we were writing Art of Drowning, but we were focused on Art of Drowning. So it was just kind of here and there. And then we had kind of amassed songs, but that was a means for us to create electronic music that we loved, which had nothing to do with AFI. Of course, electronic elements became very much part of AFI, but it's still fundamentally a rock band, and it is organic instruments. And so we wanted to do something entirely inorganic that was inspired by lots of the synth and electronica that we grew up listening to, and as well as anyone who knows the genre, who listens to Black Audio, was very inspired by the future pop scene that was happening at the time, and just the great artists releasing really fantastic records, and the scene was just really burgeoning, or pot actually kind of reaching its apex, because then it just kind of disappeared after that. But those bands as well really inspired bands, those artists, decidedly not bands, back to my point. So that was Black Audio. Are there any more? Oh, Dream Car. I mean, again, it's just another avenue for me to express music that I grew up on, and I just didn't have the opportunity to express before. And Tony and Adrian and Tom, I would run into Tony because he's a vegan, so I would see Tony around a lot over the years, and we bonded over that. And those guys grew up listening to punk, so I would see them at different shows, and I think they came to see AFI at the Electric Ballroom in England once.
I just was there a couple days ago. Such a good venue.
That's what's called, right? They put Black Audio on some No Doubt shows at the Universal. Oh, the Universal was the best. And anyways, we were acquainted, and they wanted to do a group, and they asked me if I would be interested in singing, and I know great songwriters and magicians. They're wonderful magicians, like the drummer of the Pixies, as well as musicians. So we talked. I said, yeah, this sounds really fun. And it was at a period of time where we hadn't started writing. It was a period of time where we were really trying to find someone to put out the second Black Audio record. And it was this period of flux with Black Audio and AFI and who we were working with, and we couldn't find anyone to put out the Black Audio record. We hadn't started writing Burials yet, and so I was like, I've got time. We're trying to put out this Black Audio record. We don't even have anybody to put it out. No one wants to put it out. And so they sent me four songs, bodies of music, and I heard it and I went, oh yeah, absolutely. And I wrote top lines, sent it to them. They said, okay, let's do this. And then we spent 2 years writing that record. So it came out a lot later than we had planned.
Are you playing again anytime soon?
I hope so. I'm hoping we're going to. So it's the 10th anniversary of the record in 27. So I'm hoping we'll do some shows around then.
I really admire the ability to compartmentalize all these projects. Like that, that would be so difficult for me.
It's just not, but thanks. It's not, because they're so different.
Yeah.
They compartmentalize themselves. They're all so different.
So when you consume music, are you listening to a lot of things? Because for someone like me, the way I consume music is like I get completely obsessed about a song or an album.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing I can listen to for 3 months. And then I can never listen to it.
Oh, and then you stop.
For a while. And then I come back. But
and then you come back.
That's how my brain works.
I listen to music, since you asked, in two different ways. In the car, I listen to the radio, not terrestrial radio. I listen to my curated radio stations. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, growing up, I did not listen to the radio because it was a different technology. So the radio didn't really have much to offer me because there was only terrestrial radio. So cassettes in the car growing up. So different. Mm-hmm. So that's changed. So now, which I really enjoy listening to the radio in the car, because there's a pseudo sense of universality. You know, there's a pseudo sense of universal connection, because it makes you feel like back then everybody's listening to this and there's a DJ. And I know that's not the case, but it imparts that emotionally. And at home, I generally listen to music the way you do. I'll put on an album for days and days, especially if it's something like the new Swans, like that Swans record, which is, you listen to it.
It's so good.
Oh God, Michaelis.
I can't wait to have my ears blown out.
I mean, he's just truly, it's funny that you should say that, because I've seen Swans countless times, right?
The loudest band of all time.
And the penultimate time I went to see him, were you at the Lodge Room shows?
No, I saw him in New York. And I've seen it at the Blue Room in Nashville too.
Oh, that's nice.
Scary.
Okay, yes, right? But I, for whatever reason, I never got my ears blown out. And I think it's because the majority, if not all of my Swans experience, up until the penultimate experience, were in balconies. And I think it buffered the pain. And when I was going to see Swans 2 times ago, someone at the vegan burger shop downstairs said, yeah, did you bring your earplugs? I'm like, what? No, I don't, which I regret in life, not because I can hear my tinnitus right now. And they're like, yeah, swans. I'm like, okay, damaged,
painful.
So the next time I went, I brought my like very extreme in-ear custom cut to, and painful, which is really cool. But yeah, so something like that, definitely I'm listening to it on rotation, very much focus, because it's as much poetry as it is music and ritual and transcendence, and just a great record. It's definitely something like that. If there's something new that I'm very interested in, same thing. And even if there's not, like this morning, for instance, as I was stretching and doing core before the photo shoot, I had Southern Death Cult, which of course there's not a lot of. Southern Death, it was Death Cult. You have to switch it the way I listen to it, so it's not all together. So I had Death Cult on repeat for an hour or so, which again, there's not a lot of it. So that's a couple times, and then over, and then, same, like, yesterday, I think I had, Love Secret Domain just on repeat all day and night. So yeah, similar. That's how I listen to music.
Yeah. What new music are you listening to?
Do you know Sleek Teeth? Sleek Teeth is a LA melodic, industrial, synth pop.
Okay, I'm there.
It's kind of, speaking of Blanc Mall, it's got a little Blanc Mall, it's got a little Nicer Ebb, more melody than Nicer Ebb, and good hooks.
Okay.
I saw their first show at Bunker, and it was really great. And they don't have a record. I hope they have a record soon. They just released a song that's really great. So I've been listening to them a lot. I really like the new Pixel Grip, especially the opening track. I imagine you're a fan.
I am.
Yeah. Crow's Feast. I like that. What other? I mean, LA has a lot of great younger, newer artists. I love Ricky. I love, of course, Drab Majesty. Trust is coming on tour with AFI, which is really exciting, which in the greater scheme of things we'll call a new artist in comparison to Coil and Swans, who I'm referencing. I love them. Do you know Spike Hellis? If you get a chance to see Spike Hellis, they fucking bring it. Guy-girl duo, build their own set, EBM, like Skinny Puppy, 242, Frontline, but with nuance and a hook. And if you listen to it, it's really fun because the record it's all dancey, but the record has less aggression than live, and then you see it and it's like, well, this is hard. They bring it. It's great. Yeah, so those are some new artists. There's probably a lot more if I think about it.
A question I've been asking and talking to artists about is like what community means to you as a musician in 2025.
Oh God, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing.
Valid.
That's why you're seeing me tear up. Community is tough. So to your question, as a musician, AFI hasn't had a community in decades, because all the artists that we grew up with disbanded, and we just kept going. All the artists that we related to, the bands that the Nerve Agents, the Eric Zanes, back then the Screw 32s and the Blats and the Criminals and the Dead and Gones and all the bands that we used to play with that we really related to, which may not have sonically sounded like us, but we were all coming from the same place. Swinging Utters, who we did our first tours with, and they still play and they're still wonderful. But the community that's around that, it could be there. It could be there, but we're not a part of it by just way of generation. I know that there, I see it. I'm thinking of like, now I'm thinking of like Lathe of Heaven and Puerto Negra and, very, very strong, especially in Los Angeles and in East Los Angeles. There are really, really strong communities, and they're young, and that's fucking awesome. But I mean, like they don't want us. they don't want us there. And that's not where we're from. So, but as far as the community goes, like I said, for long, we didn't have, truly, since I think the last time there was really any sort of semblance of the last part of a community that we were truly part of was that Nerve Agents era, and us touring with like F- and then just culture just changed so much, and then we had a couple of years of mainstream recognition, and we're over here doing that with absolutely no music that we can relate to, especially when they put us on festivals on the night where there was no music we can relate to, as opposed to the night. It would always be 2 nights. And I'd be like, I wish we could watch these bands. So yeah, I hope, I know there is for young people. I know there is a community, but I only feel a part of it in Lineage. I hope. I don't know. It seems like there's a community, sort of. I don't know. Is there? It's the computer.
Yeah,
it's the
people
internet.
find community through bands in that form.
Yes.
I see that.
Good.
See that on the Reddit, the AFI Reddit.
Okay, right. So if that is community, which I don't know that it is, I don't know that community can
It's tough.
exist remotely.
Yeah. I mean, it exists during a live show. I see that.
Then yes, absolutely. So yes, if it translates to that, then it can.
I mean, I think that's the thing that makes me tear up is when I'm at a show, even if it's a band I don't like, even if it's a band I don't know, like when I see people all singing together the lyrics.
That's it.
I,
That's what it's all about. Well, I mean, that's it. That's everything. That's everything. That's why AFI still exists. Exactly what you're talking about, because we broke up, we played the reunion show. Suddenly there were people singing along. This is 1993. We broke up for 6 months. And it was the first time people were singing along, and it was so moving. And then the owner of the club at the Phoenix, Lenny, and the guys from Dead and Gone sat me down on the couch when the dressing rooms or the settling rooms were downstairs and said, "Fuck you if you break up this band." And I went upstairs. I'm like, "Guys, Dead and Gone and Blaney said this, and we got to do it. Let's quit everything and just do the band." And the band at the time said, "Yep," because we came off of that connection, and that's what we had been working for 2 years. We've been striving for that for 2 years, which is funny. I obviously I'm being sarcastic, but now 2 years is, I mean, people will go 2 months and then boom.
Well, I think maybe in starting to wrap things up, like I also am just curious of any band that stayed together and seems to work well together, of like, what is the secret?
It's coming from the same place. Yeah, and we know each other so well, but I think it's that, the newest member, Jade, is the newest member, but he's been in the band for 27 years.
Brand new.
Math. At least 27 years, and then Hunter 28. And we all come from the same place. We all want to make music that moves us, and we love it. So we continue to do it. Because as they always say, also, what else are we going to do? Something. But we like it.